Is there one person you wish you spent more time with? That was it.
Wow, there were a lot of people that I wish I'd spent more time with, but to pick one off the top of my head would be Michael McMusing. Uh, he's somebody I have tons of respect for as a blogger, and just because of logistics, because he and Van Timido66, who I also would like to have spent more time with. Sorry, I'm just cramming one more in there.
Drink.
There's no drink here. Uh, the they were staying in a different part of town. They were staying with family, so they were doing some things with family, so they didn't necessarily couldn't participate as much in the YouTube events. That made it difficult. But Michael lives in LA. I live in San Francisco. It won't be hard for me to see more of him. And American Airlines seems to stick me in Dallas overnight fairly often, so I'm sure I'll catch up to Van at some point.
Yeah, I got to talk with Michael a little bit at karaoke on Friday night. I had a really cool conversation with him. I was really glad I got. That's the thing with these things is you don't always just with the logistics of the different circles moving around and stuff. You don't get to spend that time with people. So sometimes it's like I got to see Michael at karaoke. Um, that was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
Although he was in our room the next night for a little bit. So it was just you kind of you take it as it comes, and you just sometimes you have to be happy with what you get with people, and just say, well, I got to talk to them. At least it's an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for me it was Lisa Hippified One, who I did get to hang out with and have dinner with, and she got to see me at karaoke, have a few drinks, a few, and then I got to see her the next night at the welcome party. Is that what that was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, welcome party. But I wish I could have hung out with her a lot more. But at least I got to hang out with her as much as I did. So, and I have some good memories and some good photos with her too. And with our Kurt on a stick, our old Kurt on a stick. So, all right.
Next question for you would be, what was your biggest letdown?
I think it was the actual gathering itself. Um, it was, well, first of all, it was raining out, so we had to go inside, which I think may have made it a little different. But we were in a big room, and I have no footage from the gathering other than the stuff from my MacBook um, because it was really crowded. But they treated it, how'd they say it? Somebody made an announcement about the YouTube,
The big stars.
the big stars of YouTube that you've all been here waiting here to see. And all these
and the real show.
And the real show will begin shortly. I mean, Christopher Mast and other people, like good musicians, were playing at an open mic. And then they said the real show will begin soon. They interrupted Christopher to say that.
Yeah,
actually.
that's that. Yeah, in between his songs.
Yeah. And what happened is there were a lot of the little 12 and 13-year-olds that were there, like who were all fans from the homepage. And then there was it was so much like YouTube to me, like the homepage, in that you had all the promoted stars and all the like people that were promoted by YouTube on the main stage, and then we were in the community, and the community all had its little circles that kind of intersected at certain points, and the community was separate from the big stars in a lot of ways. The people who thought of themselves as stars.
Or that were being described as stars.
Yeah, that's the
thing. They didn't necessarily think of themselves that way, but they were all lumped into that stars category.
They were thrown into that too, yeah. And when they did that, it really left, we all were feeling bitter. Like, why am I so pissed off right now? And a lot of us left after Brian had to speak about the Angel Cheeks Foundation. And after that, we all left. And technically that was the gathering, and that was the part that will fade away in my memory, other than kind of those bitter memories. It was like overwhelming how celebrity focused it became.
Yeah.
How the mobs of people, none of us were digging that. from where I was sitting.
Yeah, I would have to agree that biggest letdown is for me would be the same.
All right. Compare gatherings. You have been to. Are you the biggest YouTube gathering?
Or you
Or
can say
whoer?
it. I'm up there with the mighty Thor. I don't even want to try to count. I've been to something like 8 or 9 gatherings, I think, mainly because I live in California and a lot of them are nearby.
You weren't at Appletube though.
I wasn't at Appletube. No, I wasn't invited.
True.
I would say this is one of the larger gatherings. This was as big or bigger, probably bigger than the 777 gathering in New York and South Tube last year. And there were definitely some really cool elements of this one that I hope get used again. I would say this gathering was bigger than a lot of other ones. This gathering had there was definitely a kind of a division. There were the young YouTubers, and then there was the community, and I'm because the younger ones didn't seem to be looking for each other as much as they were looking for the well-known YouTubers, whereas there were all these community people who've maybe been to a gathering or not, but were looking for each other mostly. So much younger or much larger quotient of younger people, and that was really positive there in some ways because there were at other gatherings there haven't been activities that were necessarily designed for the young people. So there would be an after party at a bar where you had to be 21 to get in, and so the young people had to go entertain themselves or just break up for the night because there was no official event. Here, all the events were open to all ages, and so that made for a lot more participation by the young people. So I would say that was the most striking difference of this one is that it was really an all ages weekend, which made it stand out.
Somebody called it Disneyland. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But there were, I mean, it made it more corporate that way because that's kind of the audience of YouTube too. It was probably a better representation of the website, not as good of a representation of the community that the gatherings had been about before then. See, I've been to Chicago almost exactly a year ago. There were 30 of us, and Minneapolis 2 months ago, where I met Mike for the first time, where there were maybe 50 people total.
Yeah,
something like that. And for me, those smaller ones, the only thing that felt different is that the bigger, like the actual gatherings, obviously, but the time with people and hanging out, there was just more of it. We were actually like partying, stuff. Where at the smaller gatherings, they were just shorter. It was like a day. But the meeting itself of the personal side of it didn't seem any different to me. There was just more of it, so it was the mass quantity. Yeah, the gathering itself was much more huge and corporate. Definitely felt like we were just like a little cog in this thing versus the other one where it felt like it was just about us getting to meet friends. And because of that, we ended up meeting friends and taking care of all of that ourselves at the hotel and spending time with each other. And in a lot of ways, that meant more to me this time because it was like going to a hotel in a new city with your friends. That's what it turned into for me. So despite some of the negatives, it was far from that. There were some ways it was far more positive, and in other ways it lost the intimacy and it lost that that group that I had at Chicago, that smaller group. I didn't have that, but my experience has grown in a year. So for me it seemed fitting and it seemed kind of perfect actually.